ready to start a new chapter in Heritage Days. We're going to be starting chapter 7. And we're going to be learning a lot about, well, some good things, but there's also a lot of problems that happen during this time. So I need to see if I can get this going right here. Now, I'm going to, after we do a short introduction, there's going to be a page that you're going to work on, and you're going to play this game. I'm going to send it to you. It's a link that I'm going to send to you on your Google Classroom so that you can play this game. I'm writing it down so I don't forget. Of course, I want you to get permission to play the game, but I've looked at it. I didn't really play the game, but I went through it and I kind of looked at it to make sure it was okay, and it's really good. So, last chapter we learned how America decided, okay, we're done. We've got our states. We've got everything the way we want it. But now let's reach out. Let's get some lands beyond us. Let's kind of conquer the world, so to speak. And they did, in a way. Had to go through the Spanish-American War, help the Cubans, and help the Filipinos, and then fight with the Filipinos. So anyway, so this lesson, this chapter is going to take us from about the year 1900, right at the turn of the century, through about 1917. Lots and lots of changes took place during that time. In fact, we like to use the word progressive or progress. Some of that progress was good and some of it was not good. So between 1900 and 1917, America was going through a progressive state. Now they did turn, most Americans turned from God to these progressive ideas. And these ideas were based on science to solve the nation's problems. No longer do we need to look to God to solve our problems. Let's look to science to solve our problems. And during this time, lots of scientists arranged people into different races. Progressives used the government to keep black Americans beneath white Americans. So then we had segregation. Segregation was practiced in the southern states, but it was also practiced in some of the northern states as well, northern communities. The American way of life was changing. More Americans bought cars. They were able to travel further from home. Airplanes were invented during this time, and they were used for military purposes and for carrying mail. So the mail changed. Our military changed. Our transportation changed. Other things changed during this time too. Authors wrote series of children's books. Artists developed new styles of art. College teachers exchanged the authority of the Bible for science. Liberal Christians created a new false religion. However, evangelists still preached the truth in evangelistic meetings. Christians were strengthened. Many unbelievers came to Christ during this time, and their lives were transformed by the gospel. So like I said, there's some bad things that went on, but there's also some good things that went on. So progressive Americans, though, thought science was going to solve America's problems, and that's kind of what happened during this time. So if you'll look in your reader book, on it's the beginning pages of chapter 7, it says progress and problems. Now there at the top of 157 there's a little timeline, and it takes you from 1900 to about 1910. Now this whole chapter kind of goes through that time and even a little bit further. So many things took place during this time. So let's look where it says at the timeline, you have the Wright brothers' first successful flight in 1903, and that's kind of based on what you're going to be studying today. But then in 1904, the National Child Labor Committee was formed. Remember how we talked about, this was maybe a chapter or 2 chapters ago, we talked about how kids would work in some of these horrible conditions. And then moving on up to around 1910, 1909, 1910, you started having committees being founded to help people that were of colors, different races. So let's look at the new problems in America, the American progress. You see that big box there on page 157? In the year 1800, the United States elected its third president. The Mississippi River formed the western border of the United States. Americans imported most manufactured goods, but foreign navies stopped American ships as they sailed on the seas. At this time, the United States was not one of the powerful nations in the world. Many things can change in 100 years, though, and much had changed by 1900. The United States had more wealth than any other nation in the world. Nations around the world imported American goods. The U.S. Navy was becoming the world's most powerful navy. New inventions were making life better. Also, medicine was improving. Americans now lived longer than ever. They also had a lot more free time to enjoy sports, concerts, and other activities. This was true not only of rich people, but also just many ordinary Americans. The word progress described life in America between 1900 and 1917. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. The first 10 to 20 years of the 1900s is what we're going to be learning about. Now, we're going to stop there. We're not going to read any pages or get really involved in chapter 7 today. We're going to wait and save that for next week. So your assignment, though, is going to be to work on page 71 in your work text. You just got a short article up at the top, and there's a picture of the Wright Brothers National Memorial. I'd like for you to read that about the Wright Brothers, and then I'd like for you to answer these questions based on what you read. Okay? I'm not going to grade it, but I would like to see it to make sure you did read it. And then I'm going to send you a link to play this game. Okay? And it's about the Wright brothers, and it gives some information. Make sure you read what pops up on the screen as you play it, but make sure you also get permission. Okay? All right, that will be all your lesson for today.